bifurcated country, and this might be the latest example of that. What's happening in the East Coast with states like New York and Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, among those saying, you know what, the better part of valor is to push this self-quarantine or whatever you want to call it for at least another couple of weeks past the May 1st deadline, which would mean another 4 weeks of what 94% of this country has gotten used to. So residents in those states said they make up, I'm doing the rough math in my head, about a fifth of the U.S. population will continue under these provisions for at least another month. Now, you might notice on the left-hand side of your screen, we're looking at Washington State, Oregon, and California. They have largely, even though a lot of this started, particularly Washington State, the Seattle area, they have been coming out of this. And so we always like to see what they're telegraphing. Maybe Santa Cruz County in California is giving the first sign of that. Officials there announced that parks and beaches, some recreational areas, will reopen to the public starting on April 16th. That would be today. This, of course, at a time when stay-at-home orders remain in effect, but there will be exceptions made, certainly in Santa Cruz County. Now, the governor, Gavin Newsom, there, working in concert with the governors of Oregon and Washington State, have been talking increasingly about how the trend and the arc has improved dramatically in all three of their states. So whether they would be inclined to extend these sheltering measures another 2 weeks would seem doubtful. That's my leap there. It's probably not accurate, but it would seem that they would not go that route. So you hear about this sort of staggered rollout, getting back to business, or what appears to be business in quotation marks, but slowly. Some parts of the country, not all parts of the country. Then there's what's going on in Michigan right now, that it really, in just the last couple of weeks, shot up to the third highest case of coronavirus cases in the United States, behind New York and New Jersey, and a further crackdown on measures to keep people distancing and far more has not gone down well. Mike Tobin with the latest. Mike.
And the latest is that you've got a group of sheriffs in Michigan who now say that they will not strictly enforce the stay-at-home orders from Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. In a press release, these four sheriffs from 4 different counties on the northwest side of the Mitten, or the lower part of the state, wrote, "We question some of the restrictions she has imposed as overstepping her executive authority. She has created a vague framework of emergency laws that only confuse Michigan citizens." Now, that argument is part of what had demonstrators out in their cars locking up traffic at the state capitol in Lansing. Demonstrators say elements of the stay-at-home order are arbitrary, too restrictive. They impose the same restrictions on rural parts of the state as they do in Detroit, where the spread is very severe.
It's time to open up. The sick are being taken care of. If you're sick, stay home and in your house. The ones that can work need to work. We need to open our businesses.
Now, Whitmer pushed back at the demonstrators, saying their behavior, such as getting out of their cars, put people at risk and likely created the need to extend the stay-at-home orders. A similar sentiment was expressed by Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear as demonstrators gathered in Frankfort. They chanted things like "Open up Kentucky" and "We want to work" so loud that the governor's briefing on coronavirus was interrupted.
It believes we should reopen Kentucky immediately right now. Folks, that would kill people. It would absolutely kill people.
A reopened Virginia protest is underway right now. There have been protests in Ohio. There have been in Texas, all over the place, and more are planned for over the weekend, Neil.
All right, Mike Tobin, thank you very, very much. Also, to update you on states, but countries as well that are updating what they're going to do. You heard yesterday about Germany intending to get everything back, or try to get most everyone back next week, and kids back in school the week after that. We are hearing separately from the United Kingdom that their provisions will remain in effect for 3 weeks, which would take us into the first week of May. And even that they're not guaranteeing would be the right time to ease up on anything. But in Britain, stay-at-home provisions that have been in place here, and they came relatively late to Britain, would stay for at least another 3 weeks, so a total of 5 to 6 weeks from that first wave that started there. Again, Britain was one of the last countries to institute such provisions. We got Dr. Jen Cottle with us on all these developments. And Doctor, every time I talk to you, we always have some breaking news developments, and you flawlessly are able to address them with little or no warning. I gave you no warning here. So what do you make of what has at least been tentatively decided in the New York area, the Northeast, some of the biggest states in the country, certainly in the case of New York and New Jersey, the hardest hit with these virus cases in the country, to push this getting back to, work for another couple of weeks?
I'm perfectly fine with it. I think it's a good idea. I'm one of the people who lives in these states. I live in Pennsylvania, and we know what's happening here on the East Coast. I agree with it. Neil, we talk every week about this issue, and it scares me. It really, really scares me. The talk about getting back without seemingly well thought out discussion about how we're going to do it and how we're going to do it safely. That is the name of the game. And nobody is saying that we can't and shouldn't get back. And of course, our economy, and we need it. Our people need jobs, but we also have to protect lives. And we've got to save lives. And we know that social distancing and these measures really do that. It's important. And Neil, I agree with it. I really do.
Doctor, it's always a delicate balance, as you've reminded me. But if you think about it, I don't want to put it in crass terms. We're simply saying when we go back, how much hardship or potential increase in cases, even deaths, can we endure or can be justified to get the economy back? It's a tough choice, but that's really what it comes down to, right? I mean, you don't want to obviously a serious spike in cases, but is it your sense that we will get, no matter when we get back to work, that we will see a spike in cases?
Well, Neil, I really actually think you put that quite well. It's a hard thing to put into words, and it's kind of astonishing to hear, right? But you're really sort of encapsulating it quite appropriately. What's the balance? How much are we willing to lose? And that's what's so wrong about this, in my opinion. That is the problem with this. Now, we do think that we're going to have coronavirus cases that go well into the future. It's not going to suddenly just stop. But this is what my problem is, and it almost feels like a very odd dichotomy. Like, for example, here in Pennsylvania, I live in Philadelphia, right? And Pennsylvania has just now released an order that for all essential businesses, for customers and workers that go into essential businesses, all have to be wearing masks. So on one hand, we are still ramping up in this country protective sort of guidelines and protocols. But at the same time, there are other parts and other people talking about getting back to work. There's a very odd sort of confusing dichotomy with that. Not that we can't and aren't supposed to be getting back to work, but we're literally still trying, and in the thick of things, trying to save people's lives and trying to turn this thing around. Now, we can do it, but I think we need more time, and we certainly need more protective measures in place to be able to get back into work at a later time.
That's very profound, Doctor. I hadn't thought of that, but you're quite right. In the middle of all of this, we are in states like New York and your Pennsylvania and elsewhere, New Jersey, where I live. I mean, they're talking about now, everyone wearing masks. So in the middle of that, why would you rush back? It is a weird conundrum. Doctor, thank you very, very much. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right. Well, the doctor's concerns notwithstanding, at least some of the states are saying, the better part of valor for now is we're going to push this back a little bit. But don't be surprised if others